People think a good marriage is loud, full of grand gestures, big declarations. Mine wasn't like that. Mine was quiet, comfortable. I liked it that way. For years married to Melissa, and I still felt lucky every single morning. I had a steady job at an accounting firm downtown, a mortgage I could actually afford, and a wife I loved enough to overlook the little things. Like how she'd been distant the last few months. Working late, sighing more than she used to. I told myself it was stress. Everybody gets stressed. You're doing it again, my coworker Priya said, catching me staring at my phone instead of my spreadsheet. Doing what? Smiling at nothing. Must be nice. It's called being happily married, Priya. You should try it sometime. She rolled her eyes. I'll pass. That afternoon, my 3 o'clock meeting got canceled last minute. The client had a family emergency. My manager, Mr. Okafor, poked his head into my office. Reyes, go home. Nothing else on the calendar today. You sure? Go. Surprise your wife. I like that idea. Surprise her. Maybe cook dinner together. Ask her what's actually been bothering her lately. I've been meaning to ask for weeks and kept chickening out, telling myself it wasn't the right time. Driving home, the city looked different at 3 in the afternoon. Slower. I had the windows down, some old song playing, and for a second, I felt like the luckiest man in the world. Stable job, good wife, a house that was actually starting to feel like a home. Then my phone buzzed on the passenger seat. I glanced down at a red light. A text from Melissa. He doesn't suspect a thing. Don't worry. Just be quick, I'll handle it. I read it twice. He doesn't suspect a thing. Who is he? Suspect what? My first thought, stupid, honestly, was that it must be about a surprise. My birthday wasn't for months, but maybe she was planning something else. An anniversary thing. A gift. That had to be it. The light turned green, and someone honked behind me. I drove forward, phone still glowing in my peripheral vision. Don't worry. I'll handle it. Handle what? I told myself I was overthinking. Melissa wasn't like that. She complained about work. She'd been quieter than usual, sure, but she wasn't the type to lie. For years of marriage, and I'd never once caught her in anything bigger than a white lie about finishing the laundry. Still, my hands felt tighter around the wheel than they should have been. I turned onto our street. Her car was in the driveway, parked at an angle like she'd pulled in fast. That wasn't like her either. Melissa parked things straight. Precise. It was one of the small things I loved about her. How careful she was with everything. I sat there for a second before cutting the engine. It's nothing, I told myself. You're going to walk in, ask her about the text, laugh about how paranoid you're being, and then you'll cook dinner like you planned. My heart didn't believe me. It was already pounding, loud enough that I could hear it over the engine ticking as it cooled. I got out of the car and walked toward the front door. The house was too quiet for someone who was supposedly home. Melissa, I called out, setting my keys on the counter. No answer, but I heard something, low voices coming from upstairs. From our bedroom. Mel. I climbed the stairs slowly, telling myself there was an explanation. Maybe the TV was on. Maybe she was on a call. My hand found the bedroom door, and for 1 second I almost knocked. 4 years married, and some part of me still almost knocked on my own bedroom door. I pushed it open instead. Melissa was sitting up in bed, the sheet pulled to her chest, her face going white. And next to her, Chris. My Chris. College roommate, best man at my wedding, the guy who lived 3 houses down because I talked him into moving to the neighborhood 2 years ago. Nobody said anything for a second. The silence felt like it lasted an hour. Daniel, Melissa finally said, scrambling for the sheet, for words, for anything. This isn't. I can explain. Explain what? My voice came out strange. Flat. Like it belonged to someone else. It's not what it looks like. It's exactly what it looks like, Mel. Chris wouldn't look at me. He sat there, half-dressed, staring at the wall like it might open up and swallow him. Chris. I said his name like a question, like I still needed him to deny it. Say something. He opened his mouth. Closed it. Opened it again. Daniel. 12 years, I said. 12 years I've known you. I know. You know? That's it. You know. Melissa was crying now, that particular kind of crying people do when they're caught, not when they're sorry. Daniel, please, can we just talk about this? Not like this. Talk about what exactly? I looked at her, and something in my chest had gone completely numb, like my body had decided feeling anything right now would be too dangerous. The text I got in the car? He doesn't suspect a thing. Was that about me? Was I the he? She flinched. That was answer enough. How long? I asked. Daniel. How long, Melissa? 8 months, she whispered. 8 months. I did the math without wanting to. Her birthday. Our anniversary dinner. The weekend, I'd surprised her with tickets to see her favorite band, and she'd cried and said it was the sweetest thing anyone had ever done for her. 8 months of that being a lie. Chris is your neighbor, she said, like that mattered, like context could soften it. It happened slowly. We didn't plan. Stop. I held up a hand. Just stop talking. Daniel, come on, man, Chris finally said, standing up, reaching for his shirt. Let's talk this through. Outside. Just you and me. I looked at him. Really looked. The guy who'd driven 6 hours to help me move into my first apartment. Who'd stood next to me at my wedding and said he'd never seen two people more right for each other. There's nothing to talk through, I said. Daniel, you were in my house. My voice cracked slightly, the first real emotion breaking through the numbness. In my bed, with my wife. And you want to talk this through? He didn't answer that. Nobody could have answered that. Melissa reached toward me. Sheet still clutched to her chest. Please, just let me explain everything. Let me tell you why. Why does it matter? I said. There isn't a why that fixes this. I stood in that doorway a moment longer, waiting for what I don't know. For her to say something that would make it not true. For Chris to say it was some horrible joke. Nobody said anything. The room just sat there, heavy and ruined, exactly the way I'd find it in my memory for years afterward. So I turned around. Daniel, wait. Melissa's voice followed me down the hallway. I didn't wait. I didn't look back. I walked down my own house, down my own driveway, past the car Chris had probably parked around the corner so I wouldn't recognize it. 12 years of friendship. 4 years of marriage. Undone in one afternoon I wasn't even supposed to be home for. I don't remember starting the car. I just remember driving, no destination, streets blurring into each other while my brain kept replaying the same 12 seconds. Melissa's face going white, Chris staring at the wall like a coward. Little things started surfacing, things I'd brushed off for months. The late nights, she said, were work stuff. The phone she started keeping face down on the counter. The way she'd stopped reaching for my hand in the car. I'd noticed. I just hadn't wanted to know. My phone rang. Ben's name lit up the screen. I almost didn't answer. Hey, you never called me back about Sunday, Ben said when I picked up. Are we still doing the game? Or he stopped. Dan? You there? I came home early today. I said, okay. Melissa was with Chris. Silence on the line. Then, with Chris. Chris from next door. You're Chris. Yeah. Like, with him. In our bed, Ben. I'm gonna kill him. His voice went sharp, immediate. I swear to God, I'm getting in my car right now. Don't. Dan, you slept with your wife in your own house. I'm not gonna sit here. I said don't. My voice came out harder than I meant it to. Please. I can't handle you doing something stupid on top of everything else right now. So what? You're just gonna let this go? Let them both just. I'm not letting anything go. I just walked out. I didn't even yell. I don't know what I'm supposed to do, Ben. I need to not think for a second. He went quiet, and when he spoke again, his voice had softened. Where are you? Driving. I don't know. Nowhere. Come to my place. I can't be around people right now. Dan, I'll call you later, okay? I promise. I hung up before he could argue. My hands were shaking on the wheel, and I hadn't even noticed until I stopped at a red light and watched them tremble against the leather. The phone rang again almost immediately. Aunt Ruth. I almost let go to voicemail. Instead, I answered, because some part of me needed to hear a voice that wasn't asking me to be angry or asking me to explain myself. Daniel. Her voice was warm, a little rough around the edges the way it always was. Ben just called me. Of course he did. He's worried about you. So now I'm worried about you. I'm fine, Aunt Ruth. You're a terrible liar. Always have been. Where are you right now? Just driving. Come to the house. I don't really feel like talking about it. Then don't talk. Sit on my porch and don't say a word if that's what you need. But you're not driving around by yourself tonight? Not with whatever just happened to your face. I can hear it in your voice, Daniel. I felt my throat tighten. I don't know why I didn't see it, I said, the words slipping out before I could stop them. 8 months, Aunt Ruth. 8 months and I didn't see it. That's not on you. It feels like it's on me. It's not, she said, firm now. The 2 people who did this, that's on them. Not you. You hear me? I didn't answer. I couldn't, not without my voice breaking completely. Come to the house, Daniel. Okay, I said finally. Okay, I'm coming. I hung up and sat at the red light a moment longer, even after it turned green, letting the shame and the grief sit there in my chest without trying to push them down for once. Then I put my foot on the gas and pointed the car toward the one place that still felt like it hadn't changed. Ruth was waiting on the porch when I pulled up, 2 mugs already sitting on the little table between the chairs like she'd known exactly how long it would take me to get here. Sit, she said. I sat. Tell me. So I told her. All of it. The text in the car, the bedroom, Melissa's voice cracking as she said 8 months, Chris not being able to look at me. It came out messy, out of order, my voice breaking in places I didn't expect it to. Ruth didn't interrupt once. She just listened, her hands wrapped around her mug, her eyes steady on me the whole time. When I finally stopped talking, she let the silence sit for a moment before speaking. 8 months, she repeated quietly. 8 months. And your brother wants to drive over there and put Chris through a wall. Something like that. And you? I don't know what I want. I stared out at the yard. Part of me wants to do exactly what Ben wants to do. Part of me just wants to disappear. Ruth set her mug down. Can I tell you something I don't tell many people? Okay. Your Uncle Walter, my husband, before he passed, he did something similar to me. 31 years old, married 4 years. Found out he'd been seeing someone from his office for almost a year. I looked at her, surprised. She'd never told me that. I wanted to burn his whole life down, she said. I thought about it, planned it in my head, what I'd say to his family, his co-workers, how I'd make sure everyone knew exactly what he was. What did you do? Nothing for a long time. I sat with it. And you know what I learned, Daniel? She looked at me hard. Revenge feels good for a night. Maybe 2. But rebuilding yourself, that lasts a lifetime. You can spend your energy trying to destroy him, or you can spend it becoming someone he doesn't get to touch anymore. Only one of those actually helps you. I felt something shift in my chest. Not comfort exactly, but something steadier. So I just let it go. Let them both just walk away from it. I didn't say let it go. I said, don't let revenge be the thing that defines what happens next. There's a difference between justice and destruction, and only one of them leaves you standing at the end. I don't know if I could just go back to that house and act like everything's normal. Then don't. What do you mean? I mean, you don't have to decide tonight whether you're getting revenge or forgiving anybody. But you do have to decide where you're sleeping tomorrow. And it shouldn't be under that roof, not with all that's still sitting in the walls. I thought about the house. The bedroom door, I'd never be able to look at the same way again. I could stay with Ben. You could. Or you could get your own place for a while. Somewhere that's just yours. No ghosts in it yet. I sat with that for a long moment, the porch light humming above us, moths circling it in slow, lazy loops. I think I need my own place, I said finally. Ruth nodded, like she'd known that's where I'd land all along. Good. That's the first decision that's actually yours in this whole mess. Make it count. The apartment was small, 1 bedroom, a kitchen barely big enough to turn around in, boxes stacked against a wall I hadn't bothered to unpack yet. It didn't feel like mine. It didn't feel like anything yet. My phone buzzed for the 4th time that day. Melissa again. I let it ring twice before answering. What? Can we talk? Please. We are talking. In person, Daniel. This is insane, you moving out, refusing to even look at me. You cheated on me for 8 months. I think moving out is a fairly normal response. I know I messed up, she said, her voice cracking in that way that used to make me want to fix everything for her. But you weren't exactly perfect either. You were never home emotionally, even when you were sitting right next to me. Did you ever think about that? I sat down on a box, phone pressed to my ear, feeling something cold settle in my stomach. So this is my fault now. That's not what I'm saying. That's exactly what you're saying. I'm saying it takes 2 people to break a marriage. No, I said, quieter than I expected. It takes 2 people to have problems. It takes one person to sleep with my best friend. Don't put that on me, Melissa. She didn't have an answer for that. I hung up before she could try to find one. I called Ruth that night, and most nights after that. Not to complain, just to talk, the way you talk to someone whose job was to help you sort through the wreckage. She said I was never home emotionally. I told her. Were you? I don't know anymore. Maybe. I worked a lot. I thought providing was the same as showing up. Sometimes it is. Sometimes it isn't. Doesn't matter now. She doesn't get to use that as a receipt for what she did. I know. It still got under my skin. That's normal. Doesn't mean she's right. At work, Priya noticed I'd stopped smiling at my phone. You okay? She asked, dropping a file on my desk. You've been weird for like 2 weeks. Going through some stuff. Divorce stuff? I blinked. How'd you? Mr. Okafor mentioned you'd asked about health insurance changes for a single filer. I put together. Sorry, wasn't trying to snoop. It's fine. I actually laughed a little, first time in weeks. You're observant. Occupational hazard. She sat on the edge of my desk instead of leaving. For what it's worth, you don't have to talk about it. But you also don't have to sit here pretending you're fine when you're clearly not. Is that an accountant thing or a Priya thing? Definitely a Priya thing. It was a small moment, but it stuck with me. She wasn't treating me like something broken, just like a person having a hard time. Nobody else at work had managed that yet. Mr. Okafor called me into his office that afternoon. Reyes, got a minute? Sure. I want to put you on the Hartwell account. Bigger client, more visibility. You interested? I hesitated. I don't know if now's the best time, honestly. I know things are complicated right now, he said, cutting me off gently. That's exactly why I'm offering it. You've been coasting for a while, Reyes. Good work, safe work. This is a chance to actually stretch. Might be good for you to have something outside your house to focus on. I sat with that for a second. He wasn't wrong. I had been coasting at work, in my marriage, everywhere. Comfortable. Safe. Small. Okay, I said. I'm in. Good. He smiled. Don't disappear on me, Reyes. I won't, I said, and for the first time since walking out of that bedroom, I actually meant it. Ben showed up at my apartment unannounced, pacing before he even got through the door. I ran into Marcus yesterday, he said. Chris's business partner. Guess who's still walking around the neighborhood like nothing happened? Ben. I'm serious, Dan. He's at the gym every morning, same schedule, same life. Meanwhile, you're in this box of an apartment trying to put yourself back together. Doesn't that make you furious? Of course it does. Then do something about it. Go over there. Say what needs saying in front of whoever's around. Let people know exactly what kind of guy he is. And that fixes what, exactly. It feels better than sitting here pretending you're above it. That one landed. I felt something hot rise in my chest, something I'd been sitting on for weeks. Fine, I said, grabbing my keys off the counter. Fine, let's go. Ben looked almost surprised I'd said yes. Wait, seriously? You wanted this? Let's go. I drove to Chris's apartment complex with Ben in the passenger seat. Both of us quiet the whole way, my hands tight on the wheel. By the time I parked, my jaw was clenched so hard it ached. You good? Ben asked. I don't know. We walked up to his door. I could hear the TV on inside. My hand curled into a fist at my side, and for 1 second, I could see it clearly. Knocking, him opening the door, me saying every furious thing I'd been holding back since that afternoon in my bedroom. I raised my hand to knock. Then I stopped. Dan. I stood there, fist inches from the door, and asked myself a question I hadn't let myself ask yet. What happens after this? Say I knocked. Say I yelled everything I wanted to yell, maybe even hit him like some part of me wanted to. What then? Chris would still be Chris. Melissa would still have done what she did. And I'd be the guy who showed up screaming at his ex-best friend's door. The story people would tell at parties. The version of me that let one afternoon turn him into someone he didn't recognize. I can't do this, I said, lowering my hand. What? Dan, we're literally standing here. I know. I can't do it, Ben. After everything he did. That's exactly why I can't. My voice was steady now, steadier than I expected. If I knock on this door and blow up, he wins twice. He gets to keep Melissa, and he gets to turn me into somebody I don't want to be. I'm not giving him that. Ben stared at me, jaw tight, clearly wanting to argue. Then something in his face softened. So what do you want to do instead? Something that actually changes something. I turned and walked back toward the car. I'm calling a lawyer tomorrow. Filing for divorce. Doing it clean, doing it right. So there's nothing left for her to twist into some excuse later. That's it? No blow up. No confrontation, nothing. That's it. That's more than it. That's me actually taking my life back instead of handing him another excuse to feel like the victim in his own story. We got in the car, and Ben was quiet for a while as I pulled out of the lot. I still think he deserves to get his teeth kicked in, he finally said. Maybe, but that's not my job anymore. I glanced at him. My job is figuring out who I am without either of them in my life. For the first time since that afternoon in the bedroom, driving away from Chris's building instead of toward it, I felt something unfamiliar settle into my chest. Control, actual control, over something for the first time in weeks. It felt better than any punch would have. Ben called me on a Thursday, sounding like he'd been waiting all day to tell me something. You're not going to believe what I heard. Try me. Marcus was at the bar last night, few drinks in, talking to Jake from the old apartment complex. Guess what he said about Chris? I have no idea, Ben, just tell me. This isn't the first time. Chris did this exact thing before. A few years back, with some guy's fiancée while they were still business partners on some project. Marcus said Chris always plays it the same way. Charming, patient, makes the other guy look boring by comparison. Then once it's done, he loses interest fast. I sat with that for a second, feeling something complicated settle in my chest. So I wasn't special. I was just the next one. Guess not. Great. That's exactly what I needed to hear. I thought you want to know. I do. I think. I rub my eyes. Doesn't really change anything, though. Marcus is pulling out of their business deal, by the way. Says he doesn't trust Chris with money if he can't be trusted with basic decency. Chris is losing the contract. That landed differently than I expected. Not satisfying, exactly, more like watching dominoes fall that I hadn't even meant to push. A few days later, Priya mentioned she'd run into Sandra, Melissa's mother, at the grocery store. She looked rough, Priya said. Asked about you, actually. Said Melissa's been a mess. Chris apparently stopped returning her calls a couple weeks ago. He stopped calling her? According to Sandra, yeah. Word is he's already seeing somebody new. Younger, from what I heard. I felt my stomach twist, not with anger exactly. Something closer to disbelief. So he just moved on? After everything. Sounds like it. I thought about Melissa. How sure she'd sounded on the phone weeks ago, insisting she and Chris had something real, something worth blowing up her whole marriage for. Sandra called me directly a few days after that, her voice tight and formal in a way it never used to be with me. Daniel, I wanted to apologize. For everything. I should have said something months ago, when I first suspected. You knew. A pause. I suspected. I didn't want to believe it. She's my daughter, Daniel. I understand. She's not doing well. If it means anything, she knows she made a mistake. A big one. It doesn't really mean anything, Sandra. Not anymore. I know. I wanted you to hear it from me, not through gossip. I thanked her and hung up, sitting alone in my apartment with all of it settling over me at once. Chris, already discarded by the next woman he'd charmed. Melissa, isolated, watching her own mother's disappointment up close. The business deal Marcus had walked away from. Everything they'd broken to be together, crumbling anyway, without me lifting a single finger. I should have felt triumphant, vindicated at least. Instead, I felt tired, and a strange, quiet sadness underneath it. Not for them, exactly, but for the version of my life I believed in for 4 years, the one that turned out to be sitting on a foundation that was never as solid as I thought. Ruth called that evening, like she always seemed to know when I needed her to. Heard the news traveled, she said. Fast, apparently. How do you feel? I thought about it honestly before answering. Like it doesn't matter as much as I thought it would. That's growth, Daniel, she said. That's real growth. 3 months passed faster than I expected once I stopped waiting for my old life to make sense again. Hartwell accounts looking good, Reyes, Mr. Okafor said, dropping into the chair across from my desk. Client specifically asked for you on the next phase. Yeah. Don't sound so surprised. You've been sharper these last few months than you were all last year. Guess I had a reason to be. Whatever it is, keep doing it. He stood to leave, then paused. Divorce finalized yet? Signed the last papers Tuesday. How do you feel? I actually had to think about that. Lighter, honestly. The divorce had gone through cleanly. No dramatics. No last-minute pleading from Melissa. Just paperwork and signatures and a strange, quiet finality that felt nothing like the explosion I'd braced myself for months earlier. Priya found me in the break room that afternoon. Stirring coffee, I wasn't really drinking. "You've been in your head all week," she said. "Divorce is final. How do you feel about that?" "Good. Weirdly good." I hesitated. "Is that bad? Feeling good about your marriage ending?" "No," she said simply. "It's honest. I keep waiting to feel like the guy whose wife cheated on him. Like that's supposed to define me somehow." Priya leaned against the counter, arms crossed. "Can I say something you might not want to hear?" "Go ahead. You've been using that story as an excuse for a while now. I'm the guy whose wife cheated. It's true, but it's not the whole truth anymore. You got promoted. You're handling your biggest account. You move into your own place and actually unpack the boxes this time. That's not the same guy from 3 months ago." I sat with that, a little stung, mostly because she was right. "What did you get so direct?" "I've always been direct. You just weren't ready to hear it before." She smiled slightly. "You don't have to let what she did be the biggest thing about you. It happened. It was awful. But it's not the whole story unless you keep telling it that way." I started seeing a therapist the following week, mostly at Ruth's insistence. "You've been carrying shame that was never yours," Ruth told me on the phone. "A good therapist will help you set it down properly instead of just white-knuckling through it." The sessions were harder than I expected. Untangling the shame I'd carried since that afternoon, the quiet belief that somehow I hadn't been enough, that I should have seen it coming. Slowly, that belief started loosening its grip. Ben still called sometimes, still simmering. "Chris got dumped by the new girl, by the way," he told me one night. "Karma's coming for him piece by piece. I don't need updates on Chris anymore, Ben." "I thought you'd want to know." "I used to. I don't now." I said it firmly, not unkindly. "I need you to stop bringing him up. It's not helping either of us." There was a pause on the line. "Yeah, okay, fair enough." It was a small moment, but it mattered. The first time I'd drawn a boundary instead of just absorbing whatever emotion someone else brought to me. That night, I stood in my kitchen, fully unpacked now, coffee mugs in the right cabinet, pictures actually hung on the walls. It looked like somebody lived here. It looked like I lived here. For the first time since that afternoon in the bedroom, I didn't feel like a stranger in my own life. The knock came around 8 on a Tuesday. I wasn't expecting anyone, so I checked the peephole before opening the door. Melissa, standing there in the hallway light, looking smaller than I remembered. I opened the door, but didn't step aside. "What are you doing here? Can I come in? Please, just for a few minutes. You can say whatever you need to say from there." She flinched, but nodded, twisting her hands together. "I made a mistake, Daniel. The biggest mistake of my life. Chris, he's gone. Left as soon as things got messy. Moved on to someone else like I was nothing. I heard. I know I don't deserve this, but I need to ask, is there any chance at all, that we could try again? I know what I did was unforgivable, but I still love you." I never stopped. I looked at her for a long moment, waiting to feel something, anger, longing, anything close to what I would have felt 3 months ago. Nothing came. "I don't hate you anymore," I said finally, "but I don't trust you either." And that's enough of an answer. "Daniel, please, we had 4 good years. We had 4 years I believe were good. That's different. People make mistakes. Doesn't that count for something? Doesn't what we had count for something? It count for the fact that I'm not going to pretend those years didn't happen. But it doesn't count for a second chance. That's not punishment, Melissa. That's just where I've landed." Tears started falling now, the kind I used to feel responsible for fixing. I didn't feel that pull anymore. "I have nothing," she said quietly. "My mom barely talks to me. Chris won't answer my calls. I lost you. I lost everything. I'm sorry you're going through that. I mean that. But it's not my job to fix it." She stood there a moment longer, like she was waiting for me to change my mind. When I didn't, she nodded slowly, wiped her face, and walked back down the hallway without another word. I closed the door and stood there, surprised by how steady I felt. Chris texted 2 days later. "Can we talk? I owe you an explanation." I almost ignored it. Curiosity won out. I agreed to meet him at a coffee shop, neutral ground, somewhere public enough that neither of us would say anything we couldn't take back. He looked different, thinner, tired, none of the easy confidence I remembered from 12 years of friendship. "Thanks for coming," he said. "You've got 5 minutes. I owe you an apology. A real one. What I did was selfish, cowardly. Go ahead. Use the words." "Yeah, all of that." He rubbed the back of his neck. "People are saying things about me now." Marcus pulled out of her deal. "People I've known for years won't return my calls. I wanted you to know I regret it. All of it." I studied him for a second, understanding exactly what this was. "You're not sorry for what you did to me, Chris. You're sorry it's costing you something." He opened his mouth to argue, then stopped, like he knew I was right and didn't have the energy to pretend otherwise. "I needed you to hear it anyway," he said quietly. I heard it. I stood up. "Doesn't change anything. So that's it? 12 years, and that's it. You ended 12 years the moment you got in my bed with my wife." I'm just the one saying it out loud. I left him sitting there, walked out into the afternoon light, and didn't look back. Not out of anger this time, but because there was genuinely nothing left behind me worth turning around for. For the first time in months, walking away felt like exactly what it was. Freedom. A year. That's how long it had been since I came home 3 hours early and found my whole life sitting behind a door I never should have had to open. Mr. Okafor called me into his office on a Friday, sliding a folder across the desk. "Congratulations, Reyes. Senior Account Manager, effective Monday." "Seriously? You earned it. Hartwell account renewed for another 2 years, largely because of you. Don't let it go to your head. Wouldn't dream of it." I shook his hand, feeling something settle in a place that had nothing to do with the promotion itself and everything to do with how far I come to get here. Priya was waiting by my desk when I got back, arms crossed, trying not to smile. "Well, Senior Account Manager." I knew it. She actually hugged me, quick and easy, like it was the most natural thing in the world. "We're celebrating. Dinner. Tonight. Is this a co-worker dinner or a... Does it matter what we call it?" she asked, raising an eyebrow. I thought about it. A year ago, I would have needed a label immediately, something to organize the chaos into a category I understood. Now I just smiled. "No, I guess it doesn't. Good. Pick you up at 7. Dinner was easy in a way nothing had been easy in a long time. No performance, no waiting for the other shoe to drop. Just two people who respected each other, figuring things out slowly, without rushing toward anything neither of us was ready for. "You've changed a lot this year," Priya said, over the last of our coffee. "In case nobody's told you that. Feels like it happened without me noticing half the time. That's usually how real change works. You don't see it happening. You just wake up one day and realize you're not the same person anymore." Ben stopped by my apartment the following weekend, a six-pack in hand, looking uncharacteristically nervous. "I wanted to say something," he said, sitting on my couch. "About this whole year. Okay, I pushed you toward doing something stupid. Kept trying to get you to blow everything up, humiliate Chris, go scorched earth. I thought that's what would help you. I remember. I was wrong. Watching you handle it your way, divorce, the promotion, actually building something instead of tearing something down, that did more than anything I wanted you to do would have done. I'm sorry for pushing so hard. You were trying to protect me, Ben. I get that. Doesn't make it right. Anger isn't the same as protecting someone. Took me a while to see the difference." "Well," I said, handing him a beer, "you saw it eventually. That counts for something." He laughed, some of the tension leaving his shoulders. "Aunt Ruth will be proud of that answer. She'd probably say something better." I drove out to Ruth's the next evening, the porch light already on when I pulled up, 2 mugs waiting on the little table between the chairs, same as always. "Senior Account Manager," she said before I even sat down. "Word travels. Ben told you. Ben tells me everything. It's his love language." She smiled, then studied me for a long moment. "You look different than you did a year ago. Feel different. Tell me." So I did. The promotion, Priya, the slow and steady thing we were building that didn't need a name yet. The divorce, fully behind me now, more relief than wound. Ben's apology, all of it laid out on her porch the way it had been laid out that first terrible night. Except this time, there was nothing shattered in it. "You remember what I told you that first night?" Ruth asked. "Revenge feels good for a night. Rebuilding yourself lasts a lifetime." You actually listened. Took me a while, but yeah, I listened. That's rarer than you'd think, Daniel. Most people hear advice like that and nod along, then go do the opposite the second it gets hard. I almost did, standing outside Chris's door, fist raised, ready to do exactly the opposite. But you didn't. No, I didn't. She reached over and patted my hand, the way she'd done since I was a kid. That's the whole story right there. Now what happened to you? What you did after. Later that night, standing in my own apartment, fully mine now, every box unpacked, every wall actually decorated, coffee mugs exactly where I wanted them. I turned the keys over in my hand before setting them on the counter. A year ago, I drove home early expecting an ordinary afternoon and instead found the door to everything I thought I had. I'd walked into that bedroom one person and walked out completely undone. But undone isn't the same as destroyed. I understand that now, standing in a life I actually built instead of one I'd simply inherited, a promotion I earned, a friendship with Priya I wasn't rushing, a family that finally understood the difference between anger and love. Coming home early that day didn't ruin my life. It just forced me to finally build one that was actually mine.